Welcome to the pre-lunch, I think, session. I usually present a lot of my own material, not just Michael, but content that's been geared specifically for the local audience. This is actually a presentation that's a little bit more global in focus or delivery inputs, with my own though as well. And they put me in the big room, so they clearly don't want me doing my own stuff. And welcome to everyone in the nosebleed section up there. Be careful coming down the stairs, I nearly fell down. And welcome to everyone on the stream as well. We're going to talk about the future of cloud. And one of the things I did manage to put into this presentation is the first slide. They often encourage us to have a slide that, when you forget everything, because there's a lot to cover and take in over the course of 3 days. Maybe this is the slide that triggers your memory. Cloud as a transformation, a technological transformation that much like revolutions in transport, like the waves of innovation that happened and the ecosystems that got created around the expansion of the US railroad, right? And it was in phases. It was industries that didn't exist before, industries that were able to transform through this technological innovation. And right, if we were here 5 years ago, we would have been talking about Uber and Airbnb and things like that. What is the next wave of those is what I'm going to be covering over the next 28 minutes and 9 seconds, according to my timer. So where are we on that journey? If you look at the market and the adoption of cloud, and you take that as a proxy, and when I'm talking here, I'm talking about the revenue for the market overall. If you take that for a proxy of where we are on the enterprise adoption of cloud, you can see what we've got here. We've got a market that is slowing to 15% growth as against the rest of the industry, where it's kind of a 3% kind of growth across traditional IT. And when Gartner looks at what can go to cloud as measured by the same kind of metrics, then we're going to get to about 50% in the next few year and a half. And we'll get to that crossover point where there is more of what can go to cloud, because not everything go to cloud, right? It's a key point here. Will have gone to cloud as measured by, again, the market size. If you look at it by your spend in your organizations, it's gone from, God, I'm having a mental blank here. It was 5, 8, 12, 14, now it's 16% of your total IT budget, right? The biggest spend is on people, depending on how you measure it, whether it's salaries as well as outsourced, out-tasked. That's about half of your spend. Cloud's now bigger than hardware spend per year in the average organization, and it will vary. Your mileage will vary. It depends on the industry that you're in, right? Some are more progressed than others. Financial services and government, I know there's a lot here from those sectors. They're a little bit slower in their adoption. More tech to kind of go on that journey. So, what is that journey? That's what we're here to talk about. The next 5 years, the key trends. So let's get into that. And look, let's use this as a frame of reference for looking at the players in the market, because they do vary considerably. If we start at the bottom, you're talking about I guess the first wave of that railroad analogy. This is what has become known as the hyperscalers. I need my glasses to read the notes down here at the bottom, otherwise I'm going to be looking like that and I'm going to hurt my neck. On top of that, there's those that have managed to leverage that capability from the hyperscalers. And, some examples there are things, and I'll try to hopefully give you some examples as we go through this. This is vendors like VMware. They've done a reasonably good journey, really reasonably good job of going from being server and on-prem infrastructure centric to being you know, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud if you give them that. Snowflake's another example. I know a lot of you are using Snowflake. There's also this critical point, right? The reality of cloud today is 75% of you in this room are multi-cloud at that base layers. If you look up the stack, all of you, right, are multi-cloud. So in these enhancing capabilities, there's things that that underlying platform don't want to do. Amazon's fairly notorious for trying to, you know, ignore the rest of the world that's not Amazon. And so how do you get that glue? How do you build that bridge between the storage in those layers, the networking, connectivity to it? I say to organizations, you should always plan for multi-cloud, even if you intend to be single cloud. And you've got to look at the network, the storage, the identity, access controls, and then the management over the top. Now, there's more to it, of course, than that, including particularly billing, and cost management on top of that as well. And then you get the value enhancement. I'll give you, let's get to some examples of that in just a moment. These are often more kind of user-facing, whether it be consumer or employees, citizens, etc. So if you look at this as an example across these, where do most of the vendors in the cloud market fit today? You've got some surviving you know, kind of like evolved hosting in certain industries. This will have a very survivable capability. You're also seeing some of the more evolved co-location providers, like, you know, in the Australian marketplace, a NextDC, or in global marketplace and Australia and Equinix, where they've become very much a part of the cloud ecosystem, hosting a lot of the workloads and also connecting them together. If you go to what I guess most of us know in the cloud space, the hyperscalers, the Amazons and the Microsofts in particular, coming from very different kind of starting points, and Amazon and Google coming from more of that cloud space, whereas Microsoft, and I'll talk about Oracle, and now let's add IBM in, given I'm building this out. They've kind of come more from a knowledge of your particular industry, investments in that industry, and so they kind of expose and provide applications right up into that kind of value enhancement, as we're calling it here. So SaaS offerings would be an example there as well. Certainly still a place, and some of my colleagues would argue, certainly still a place, at least today, and I guess this is a watching brief, specialist PaaS providers. And one of the colleagues that I talk about with says there will always be 700 PaaS vendors in the world. You get into this point from above where there are PaaS vendors SaaS vendors that have come down into PaaS. You know, Salesforce would probably be a great example of that. And then you get, you know, kind of pure play SaaS vendors that are staying in that lane, right, rather than kind of go down into the PaaS layer. So lots of different players in the market. If I backtrack a second, can I go back? Yep. These guys, let me build it out this way. You know, I joke a lot that it's very easy to get into this space. You just need $10 billion a year and a string of global data centers, right? The investment here is huge. Whereas, and look, you know, on the global stage, one of the great exciting things for me is the ability for lowering the cost of entry, leveraging this, right? So Atlassians and Canvas of this world started in Australia, now on the global stage. And you may be working with some specialist vendors right up here at the top of that know your industry and they know your location, your geography as well. You continue to see the big fish trying to expand, and we're going to talk about that in a particular context, industry cloud, in just a moment. In fact, let's jump to that, because this is the meat of the presentation. Gartner's predictions for the next 5 years in cloud. And I do think I'm just going to say, in case I forget later, here's the ones we have. I'm, even in the discussions I've been having so far over the last day and a half, and if you've had a chance to have a one-on-one, you probably know what it's like for us down in the dungeon, the analysts doing meetings every 30 minutes. If you haven't, definitely try and get one of those. It may be too late. But today, for me, it's cloud, 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 cloud operating model, cloud change management, cloud expense, cloud, 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 cloud. The one I've heard that I think you'll see more from us next year is around SaaS management. That's tended to be something that the business units have chosen. They've tended to go on their own a lot of the times. Your experience may vary. Either way, you know, that getting enabling those SaaS applications in the right ways, the business logic, enabling the business units to take care of their functionality needs, their value enhancement, if you just think back to the slide I just showed. But how do we get the right controls on top of that? I think certainly our research is saying this is pretty much still the Wild West. And I think you'll see SaaS management come onto this list. But we're going to start with multi-cloud, right? Interesting trend here. It's not supported by the absolutely latest research surveys we've got, but it's definitely something to watch. And I've got a session tomorrow and ask the expert on the topic of multi-cloud. You know, will it deliver on the what? I say the what because it varies a lot by the type of organization you are. We have this way of measuring adoption, different technology adoption profiles. Think of it kind of like Myers-Briggs, if you know that, but for how organizations adopt. We've also got a way of doing it in terms of how organizations buy, and you're very dysfunctional. The way that business decisions, going back and forth on the buying decision, is a challenge. In terms of technology adoption, we find that some are looking at it to improve availability. That's wrong. Don't do that. It doesn't work. Don't do multi-cloud to improve your availability, because what you end up with is this patchwork of this bit connected to that bit connected to that bit. The trick you have with multi-cloud is to unlock the value, you've got to accept the lock-in, right? And that's what the hyperscalers have done to you. And funny enough, you're doing to them as well. There's this dangerous connection that I'm starting to see where you've trained the hyperscalers to behave like traditional vendors, and they're responding by hiring traditional salespeople, and you get in this vicious circle. In terms of the multi-cloud though, like I said, you've got to be planning for it. You've got to have the tools so you can avoid a bit of the lock-in where it makes sense. But the point here, and I could talk about, you know, and for some of you, concentration risk is a big issue. You'll know what that is. If it's important to you, not putting all your eggs in one basket. What else do we see? We haven't seen it, funny enough, for geographic expansion for the most part. And maybe that's more of the cloud natives, the Atlassians and Canvas in the Australian context as well. But what we're saying here is that there will be a movement backwards from multi-cloud, accepting some of the lock-in to unlock the value, getting up into PaaS. Now, I'll say it for the record, cloud first is not the way to go. It's SaaS first, PaaS second, IaaS third. I hear some that say SaaS first, IaaS second. It's definitely changing the shared responsibility model. What level of that can you do? When it comes to multi-cloud though, unlocking that value, maybe we haven't done it as much. Best of breed is probably the most reasonable, getting the best of breed. Some it just gets foisted on you. Maybe you're an organisation that has a lot of merger and acquisition, right? But you've got to make a conscious call, and we see a huge variation in this. I said 25%, well, I said 75% multi-cloud. Obviously, that means 25% single cloud. Within that, the mix of primary versus preferred differs quite a bit. right, by your adoption profile. The ability to have, either effective dialogue with the business, the degree of control in which the environment in which you operate, and most importantly, the degree of agility that you need. The more dynamic you are, funny enough, the more you've been able to have a higher proportion of your primary cloud vendor, because you've seen the value of accepting a degree of lock-in. All right, number 2 on our list is cloud-native platforms. For once, Gartner has a pretty simple but all-encompassing definition of cloud-native. It's one of those things that means everything to everyone. We define it as something that leverages the full capabilities of cloud, right? So this is elasticity. The number one